Let's start from scratch with Lightroom Classic. This is a series of free online classes about learning Lightroom Classic's newest version, 2025. It'll be divided up into several parts, and it should get you up and rolling in Lightroom Classic right away. Hi, I'm Terry Venner, professional photographer, and in this series, I'm going to take you through all the steps to getting you confident in using Lightroom Classic, even if you've never opened Lightroom Classic before. Now, if you're already a user of Lightroom Classic, you might find some of the tips useful along the way, so feel free to stick around and check it out. Now, this is a series on learning Lightroom Classic 2025. Adobe has two programs that are similarly named, Lightroom and Lightroom Classic. There's a few differences between the programs, but the most important difference is that Lightroom is an online program where your images are stored in the cloud. If you'd like to do your image editing and cataloging on an iPad or an iPhone, then Lightroom might be what you're looking for. With the monthly fee of about $12 a month, you get a terabyte of storage space. If you need more space, the current cost is $15 more per month for an additional terabyte. However, if you shoot a lot of images come from a larger megapixel camera, then you might find that Lightroom Classic to be a better option. All your images are stored locally on hard drives that are either inside your computer or near your computer, so that there's no waiting for images to download or upload from a cloud service, and the images are right there for you. Also, once you buy your hard drive, there's no monthly expense for storage, like there would be if you're using the online version of Lightroom. I use a lot of space because I shoot a lot of images during the year. I would need quite a few more terabytes by the end of the year, so for me, I'll store my images on local hard drives. Now, if I'm doing that, I'm going to be using Lightroom Classic. So let's head over to the Adobe website and let's figure this out. On the Adobe website, they have a section for the photography plans, and this is where you can go in and compare pricing and find the one that's best for you. So these are three different versions of how you can access Lightroom in your computer. So the first one here is Lightroom, and Lightroom is the online version I was talking about. So this gives you a terabyte of space, and it costs you about $12 a month, $11.99, $12 a month. So you download this program into your iPad or on your computer if you like, and then all your images ultimately get stored in a cloud and then you access them that way. Now the speed is fairly fast because you're going to be working on images that are basically stand-in images. So you'll work on those images, and then when you finally want to output something, then it'll go up and draw down the larger file and output it. So your quality is not going to be missing a beat with this. However, it's $11 a month. And at $11 a month, you get that 1 terabyte, which seems great, but over time, you're going to fill that up if you're shooting large megapixel files. And over time, you're going to need more terabytes, and that's going to be another $15 a month every time you add a terabyte. And as you go further down the line over years, you're going to see that that cost is just going to build up. Now, the advantages is you can work on these images while you're on a plane because you've just downloaded the images. You're working on them when you're traveling. Those are advantages, but you can also do the same thing inside of a laptop. You can have that kind of portability with your Lightroom catalogs. So the next version over here is the Lightroom. It's called the Photography Bundle, and you get Lightroom and Photoshop. So remember, this one over here only gets you Lightroom, but this one gets you Lightroom and Photoshop. And I strongly encourage you to learn how to use Photoshop. I have lots of videos on working with Photoshop. It's a great, great tool to work with. And in combination, Lightroom and Photoshop are really a great way to go. So this is what I do. You have both Lightroom and Photoshop as an option. And this is now about $15 a month. Now you got to pay annually, so you pay one price up front. And what I found is there are times if you go looking in the fall, say maybe around Black Friday, that type of thing, you can find deals that some companies will put out that kind of get you the photography plan from Adobe for a slightly cheaper price, maybe $120 a year or something like that. So look for that every time you get an opportunity to see if there's a better deal that might be out there. The other plan is all the Creative Cloud apps, which is really great if you're going to use them, but at $59 a month, that can get kind of expensive. And that's, of course, InDesign and Illustrator and all the programs that Adobe makes, which is great, but you may not need that. So this is what I encourage people to get, the photography plan, which is Lightroom Classic and Photoshop. And that's all you need. So simply what you do is you click buy now, you put in your information. That's going to download to your download section. Once you download it, you're going to activate the program, load it into your computer, and you're good to go, whether you're working on a PC or a Mac. Now, during this demonstration, I'm going to be working on a Mac, but everything I show you is pretty transferable to a PC. So that's how you work with inside of Lightroom. So you've downloaded this. Now, you've got Lightroom set up on your computer and it's brand new and you haven't done anything, and I don't want you to do anything yet. You're going to need to have some images to create your first catalog. So the way we're going to do that, I have a site where if you want some images to work with, these are LRC beginner raw files. These are all a bunch of my own RAW files that I shot with my Nikon. That's why you're going to see they're .nef files. And I don't want you to use these images to show people and say, oh, look what I did. Please don't do that. This is just for your education purposes. You can use them for education. When you're done with them, get rid of them. So once you've downloaded all these images, I want you to go and copy them onto a card, just the same card that you use from your camera. So that way we can upload these as normal. So you'll need a card reader to transfer. A card reader, this is a card reader I use a Lexar because I happen to use Lexar cards. And you're going to plug that in and you're going to take your images and that you've downloaded from me and load them onto this card. So it'll be kind of like you're pretending that you just shot these images and now you're going to load them into your catalog. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to download those and put them into our card. All right, so now we're inside just a fake catalog here that we just put together, a real brief catalog. And what we're going to do is we're going to create our first catalog. So there kind of is some important things you want to consider when you're putting together your first catalog. The first catalog, you want to know, you're going to take your images in, whether they're images that you're downloaded from me or images that you shoot yourself. And obviously going forward, it'll be the images you shoot yourself. But we're going to want to know where they're going to go. So what I suggest people to do is to get a hard drive. And this is an SSD external hard drive. It's not the hard drive that's inside of my laptop. This is an external hard drive. And so I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. And I'm going to allow my computer to recognize it. And you'll see over here that I have this transfer disk, which is what this hard drive is. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to load my card that has the images in it. And that's going to pop up as well. Give it a second. Okay, so we see the Z9, which is the camera I shoot with, and our transfer disk. And now we have our program here. So the first thing we're going to do is make a new catalog. So regardless of anything that you've seen so far, I want you to start with going up to File, coming down and say New Catalog. Let's create a new folder onto that hard drive, and we'll call that a test cat. And then inside here, we're going to just title this our new, we'll say first catalog. So now what we've got is we've got our Lightroom catalog. Let's go ahead and create. And what it's going to do, it's going to close it all down and then open it back up. And you could see at the top, it's called First Catalog, LRCAT, which stands for Lightroom Catalog. And now we have this over here. And if we just slide this over, I'll look inside of this transfer disk and we'll see we have Test Catalog, First Catalog. And then this is all information that Lightroom builds for you to build your catalog. So it's nothing you need to deal with, just ignore it. because as soon as we start loading pictures in, and these are shot, not all shot, let's say in 2025, they're shot in different years, it'll actually put folders in for whatever year that was shot. It'll take that from the metadata. We're all set. We're going to load images for the first time. So we're going to come over here. We're going to hit the library. If it's not already lit up, it's going to say library. And you're going to see over here on the left that all photographs is 0. So you don't have any photographs yet. And we're about ready to import our first images. So we come over to import, click import. If you're enjoying this kind of content, hit the like button. Also be sure to subscribe to this channel and ring that little bell icon to be reminded of my next video. I always read and respond to all the comments in the comment section. So feel free to leave a comment or a suggestion or a question, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Sometimes your comments lead to future videos, so I appreciate the ideas, so keep them coming. If you like, you can always contact me directly via email, and my email address is terry@imagelight.com. I'll answer your questions and add you to my mailing list, so you'll be alerted that way of my next video release. Of course, now we're going to have to look for where they're coming from, right? So we're going to look for the source. So select the source, and this will be in the Nikon. There it is right there. Those are all those beginning raw pictures that you downloaded from my site. Just a few. And so this is the source where they're coming from. Now up here, it's super important as we do this. You can copy as a DNG, meaning that when you bring these images in, they'll become DNGs as opposed to .NES Nikon files. Not going to really make a huge difference in terms of your working, but if you want to just have DNGs, you can do that. That's up to you. Then there's the term here, copy, and copy is what you're going to use 99% of the time. You're going to copy images over to whatever hard drive you designate. The next one is move, and sometimes you're going to move files if they're already on your hard drive and you just want to move them into your catalog, and we'll go over what that does at another time, or add them. And so that would be the same thing if we're adding images to a catalog. So in this case, we're going to copy images. So we're going to come from our source and we're going to copy the images. And now we're going to come over to where we're going to put them. Now, normally the default is going to be inside your hard drive in the pictures file or something, right? But we don't want that to happen. We want to just put those images into our external hard drive. So we're going to triangle this up and look for our transfer disk. We're going to go into Test Catalog. And this is where we're going to put all of our images. And if you look close, you can see that there's several different dates here. And the reason is all of these files are shot in different dates. You'll see it's not essential that you look at it that way, but we just want them in that test catalog where we actually started this whole thing. So this is super important. When you're going to be importing for the very first time, you need to be kind of really particular of 3 things. You're going to want to see where they're coming from, how they're getting there. So are you going to copy them? Are you going to move them? How are you going to do them? And then where are they going to? Because you want to make sure they go to the right spot. So let's take a look before we do any of our actual importing. There's a section up here called File Handling. And when we build previews, this is building previews of what you're going to actually look at and see. And we've got options here. We've got minimal, and minimal makes your download or your import much faster. Embed with Sidecar is another file that will show up. Or standard, which means it's going to be fairly large to begin with. And this is what I usually like to do, is I like to have a nice standard thumbnail that I'm going to be working at. So I don't waste a lot of time of letting the Lightroom, reload that image every time I go to open it. It's a fairly good standard image that I can work on. And once it's loaded, it's real clean and I can zoom around on it and not have to wait too long. So standard's the way that I go. You can do whatever you like. If you want to save time on import, you're going to waste more time when you're doing developing. So standard is something I just waste the time now rather than do it later. So now we come down here and we can build smart previews. We're not going to deal with that today. Don't import suspected duplicates. I usually always have this checked because that way if you go to load things from a card that you've already shot things on, that's going to be something where those images won't get loaded a second time. And you don't want to have multiple images. You only need the one image, right? So I always click this and say, don't import suspected duplicates. So you want to keep an eye on that if your camera numbers start to roll over and you start getting more duplicate numbers. But likely by then you're going to have different catalogs for different things. So this is just our simple first catalog. This next section is make a second copy to. So you can, if you want, plug yet another hard drive into your computer and send a copy of those images out there. And that's a really good backup system of way to go. But what I prefer to do is fill up my transfer drive every time I import, and then I just duplicate that entire drive. And that way I have a duplicate of that. And that's a great way to go. In fact, I have a video on how to duplicate your drives. And I'll put the link up here and I'll put it in the description below and you can go see how to duplicate your drives. It's really a really great way to work. You load onto one drive and then you duplicate that drive from time to time. So it's an exact duplicate of your Lightroom catalog drive. All right, add to collection. We'll talk about collections another time. But as we go down, we can see here file renaming. We really don't want to rename files. It's not of any real value. You can if you like, but I don't because when you start shooting hundreds and thousands of images, to start renaming them it's just too much work. And then apply during import. These are things where you can tell it to do certain things with your development. Don't care about that. We're not going to do that. And then destination. So destination is an important spot where we want to see where this is going to go, right? So we have selected our test catalog inside of our transfer disk. So again, we want to look at where things are coming from, how they're getting there, and where they're going to go. And they're going to go, in this case, to the test catalog. So we're pretty happy with everything. All of these images are checked. And let's say, for instance, as you go through here, and you can make these larger and look at images that maybe you don't want to add in. So if you were to click this, that image wouldn't be imported. And so that way you don't have to worry about that. So if you see a bad image or something out of focus, a shot of your foot or something like that that you don't want, you can click it here and not import it. So it's a little faster way to import just the best and favorite images. And this slider down here allows you to make little tiny thumbnails or larger thumbnails. You can also, if you want to come in here, you can double click and that's going to give you a large image. So this is another way that you can go through your images and decide, hey, do I want to import this? Yes, no, maybe. I usually import just about everything in a general shot, but like on these pictures of this house finch, I had hundreds and hundreds of images. And that's something where you're going to want to say, I really want the ones that are in focus. I only want the ones that are where they're facing me, whatever. This is an easy way to go through. And the way you do it is use your little forward and backward arrows. And you can just go through and click and see which ones you like. And let's say you come to one you don't want. You can just click this button down here to not include it in the import. So as we go through, we can click here, and let's say we didn't want to import that, click to not include it. So now when we come back and we hit this, this is our grid mode. So what we're in now is close-up view or loop mode. And in this mode is our grid view. And so you can see here that these that we selected are grayed out, okay? And the grayed out ones will not be imported. Now there's another way that you can do this, and that's down here where you can do check all. So you check all of them, and all of them are going to have a check mark. Or you can do uncheck all, and they're all grayed out. And now you decide which one it is you want to import. Another way to do this is clicking on this and clicking a little, you say, oh, I want all of these house finches in. So the way you do this, click on the first one, hold the shift key. Now you clicked on all of these. And if you click this little button up here, you can see that now all of these are clicked. That means that all of these will be imported. Anything that doesn't have a little check mark is not going to be imported. So there's another way that you can kind of do some editing before you even import. And it makes your imports go faster, and that means you're only bringing in the images you really want. So that might be something you might want to consider doing as you're working and deciding that way. If you're not sure, just check all, and you can delete those images later at another time. You don't have to make the decision here. You can make the decision, because editing images, when you're deciding of what images you want to keep, it's really important that you really look at them close and say, well, maybe I'll have a use for that, because they're not taking up a ton of space. Because remember, we're not uploading to a cloud. We're uploading to a hard drive, and a hard drive can hold all these images, and when you run out of space, you simply buy another hard drive. So it's not something that is going to be a real cost-effective move if you're just trying to save one image. Oh, I don't want to import that. So if you're on the fence, import it. That's really a good rule of thumb. And again, down here you have your choice: check all, check none, and that's a great way to go when you're working. So this is our grid. This is close up, and this will look at any of your images close up, and you can use your toggle on your mouse if you want to zoom through these, or you can use the forward and backward arrow. Let's go back to the grid mode. We see that these are all imported. We like that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to hit the word import down here, and Lightroom's going to take all of those images off the card and copy them, because that's what we told it to do, copy those images into our catalog. So now what happens is we'll see up here, it's going to build those standard previews. This might take a few minutes depending on the speed of your computer. And it's going to build these standard previews so that now we can look at them pretty tightly inside of Lightroom. And that's what we're going to ultimately want. So once this thermometer is done building, you can see there it goes away. Now we are set. We have just done our first upload. Now we can actually come over here, take our card that we have, right click and eject that Z9 card. And now this card is no longer in use. The images are still on this card, which is great, because if you want to load them somewhere else, or you're not sure about these images yet, or if you didn't back up your system, or all kinds of different reasons, you can hang on to them here. But usually what I like to do is to make sure in my workflow that my images are safely held in two spots. So on this drive, and then maybe my duplicate drive that I'll do. They're held in two spots. And then when I know that they're safe into two spots, then I will format this card. So there we have it. We have our first catalog that we've set up. We've imported images into our first catalog. And now we're going to get ready to go. And you'll see here what they've done is they've put these into how they were shot by the time of date that they were shot. Because down here, we can see that we have chosen capture time for all of these images. Now, had we done them in, let's just say, any kind of file name, for instance, we could change that. You can change it to anything you want of how you want your initial catalog to be sorted. But generally what you're going to want to do is capture time, because that's an easier way to kind of catalog your images and know where the images are going, where they're staying, when you shot them. You can kind of say, oh wait, I was in Tahoe on the 14th, so those will be first, and it'll be easier to find. So now we've got all of these images in here, and we can see that inside of each image we're going to have information, and this is called metadata. You may or may not know about this, but it's embedded inside of all of your pictures, right? And this gives us all kinds of great info, right? It gives us the size of the image. It gives us the date that it was originally photographed. It gives us our settings of what we shot at, the lens that we used. If we used a zoom lens, what focal length it was. It gives us any kind of exposure information or ISO information, any of this stuff that we did, the actual lens that we shot on. And then, of course, it has my copyright on them because that's built into my camera. And so this is all great info that you can get inside of metadata when you're working. Now you have the ability to change some of those things. If you'd like different information, this is a pull down here. That's probably worth its own little demonstration show of all the things you can do with metadata. So maybe we'll get into that another time. But you'll see that all of these images are shot at different times. They're shot with different lenses. and it's really a great way that you can find things. And we'll get into finding images and sorting our images on the next episode. So there you have it. You have your first catalog built. You're ready to start loading images into it. And next time we're going to go over how we actually sort our images and find our images. So that's really a cool part of Lightroom Classic, as we put our images in, and now we can kind of put them places so we can actually find them. I'll show you how to do that next time.